It's roughly 780,000 years ago. You're standing near a lake in what is now northern Israel. There is no kitchen, no fridge, no little packet of seasoning hiding in the back of a drawer from 2019. Just you, a dead fish, a smoky fire, and one strange question. Do you eat it raw, like every sensible hungry animal has done for millions of years? Or do you hold it near the flames and hope the mysterious hot orange thing improves dinner instead of turning your fingers into a prehistoric barbecue accident? There are no recipes, no cooking shows. No one is saying, today we're doing a simple lakeside carp with a rustic ash finish. There is just hunger. There is heat. There is a group of people watching closely, because if this goes wrong, congratulations, you have invented food poisoning with extra steps. And yet, somehow, somewhere in deep prehistory, one of our ancestors crossed a line that no other animal truly crossed in the same way. They stopped just eating food as nature handed it to them. They transformed it. They heated meat. They softened roots. They roasted fish. They turned tough, dangerous, chewy things into safer, softer, richer meals. And that small act may have helped change the human body, the human brain, the human family, and maybe even the sound of people sitting around a fire telling stories. So when did ancient humans start cooking? The annoying answer is, we do not know exactly. The much better answer is, the clues are burned into bones, hidden in fish teeth, buried in caves, and tangled up with one of the biggest changes in human evolution. This is not just the story of cooking as we know it today. It is not about ovens, spices, butter, salt, or someone getting emotional over soup. This is the story of why humans ever started cooking in the first place. Because cooking is weird. Think about that for a second. Most animals do not look at food and think, this needs processing. A lion does not pause before eating a zebra and say, maybe medium rare. A chimpanzee does not gather tubers, wash them, roast them, and complain they needed more garlic. Animals eat, humans cook, and cooking is not just heating food. It is planning. It is waiting. It is controlling fire. It is knowing that something can be better after it changes. That is a huge mental leap. Today, cooking feels normal because it surrounds us. We cook to make food taste good. We cook to celebrate. We cook because raw chicken is basically a threat wearing a protein costume. But for ancient humans, cooking may have begun as something much more basic, a way to survive with a body that was always hungry and a world that did not care. The deeper question is not, when did humans invent dinner? The real question is, when did our ancestors learn that fire was not only dangerous, but useful? Because before cooking could exist, humans had to make peace with fire. And fire is not a friendly tool at first. Fire bites, fire runs. Fire eats wood, grass, skin, homes, forests, everything. Using fire is like adopting a wild animal that can erase your entire campsite if you stop paying attention. So the story of cooking begins with fear. The obvious answer seems simple. Humans probably discovered cooking when food accidentally fell into a fire. A piece of meat dropped into the flames. A burned animal was found after a wildfire. Someone smelled roasted flesh and thought, that is either dinner or a terrible idea. That explanation makes sense, except one thing does not fit. Finding cooked food after a natural fire is not the same as cooking. Lots of animals may eat burned or roasted food after wildfires. Some birds even follow fires to catch insects and small animals fleeing the flames. But they do not build kitchens. They do not guard embers overnight. They do not teach their young how to roast roots. The short answer is, we do not know exactly when humans first cooked. The long answer is much more interesting because cooking is not one single invention. It is a chain of smaller steps. First, ancient humans had to encounter fire. Then they had to stop running from it every time. Then they had to carry it, protect it, feed it, and maybe steal it from natural fires. Later, they had to make it on purpose. Somewhere in that long process, they began putting food near it. And here's the problem. Fire does not leave nice, clean evidence. Stone tools can survive for millions of years. Bones can survive. Teeth can survive. But a campfire? A campfire is ash, charcoal, heat marks, and burned scraps. Rain can wash it away. Wind can scatter it. Later fires can confuse it. A cave roof can collapse over it. A burrowing animal can ruin the whole archaeological puzzle while minding its own ancient business. So when scientists ask, when did cooking begin? They are really asking, what is the oldest evidence we can trust? That difference matters. Ancient humans were not living in a comfortable world. Before cooking, food was work. Serious work. Imagine trying to survive without shops, metal knives, pots, medicine, clean water, houses, or dental care. Now imagine doing that while needing thousands of calories, avoiding predators, raising children, and chewing food that often seem personally offended by your mouth. Raw meat can be tough. Raw plants can be even worse. Many roots, seeds, and tubers are hard to chew and hard to digest. Some are full of chemicals that protect the plant from being eaten, because plants are not peaceful little salad decorations. They are living things with defenses. Some are bitter, some are toxic, some are only safe after soaking, pounding, or heating. And then there is meat. Raw meat can carry parasites and bacteria. Ancient humans did not know the word bacteria. They did not know about invisible microbes, but they absolutely knew when someone ate something bad and spent the next day regretting every life choice since birth. Cooking helped with that. Heat kills many dangerous tiny organisms, even if ancient humans did not understand why. To them, cooked food may simply have seemed less risky, easier to chew, and more filling. Cooking also changes food physically. Heat softens muscle fibers. It breaks down tough plant tissues. It makes starches easier for the body to use. Starch is a kind of stored plant energy, like the fuel inside roots and seeds. When heated, it becomes easier for our bodies to turn it into energy. In other words, cooking is like doing part of digestion outside the body. That may sound small, but it is huge. Digestion costs energy, chewing costs time. If cooked food gives more usable energy for less effort, then cooking is not just a nice upgrade. It is a survival technology. Look at your own body. Your teeth are not impressive compared with many animals. Your jaw is not built like a gorilla's. Your gut is shorter than what you would expect from a large ape living only on raw wild plants. You are not naturally great at eating like a chimpanzee. A chimp can spend hours chewing tough food. You would give up and search for noodles. This is where some scientists, especially Richard Wrangham, have argued that cooking may have been central to making us human. The theory says cooking gave early humans more energy, and that energy helped support bigger brains and smaller guts over evolutionary time. Is that proven? No, not fully. But it is a powerful idea, because our bodies look like bodies that have depended on soft, energy-rich food for a very long time. Here's where it gets interesting. The best evidence does not begin with a full meal. It begins with tiny burn traces. One famous site is Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. The name sounds like a place that should sell fancy bread, but it is actually one of the most important caves in the story of ancient fire. Inside the cave, researchers found burned bone and plant ash in layers about 1 million years old. That matters because the burning seems to have happened inside the cave, not outside in a wildfire. Wildfire evidence can be misleading. A natural fire can sweep through grassland and burn bones, plants, and stones. But Wonderwork's burned material was deep in the cave. That makes natural wildfire less likely. This does not prove that someone was carefully cooking dinner with a little stone spatula. Do not picture an ancient chef saying, "The mammoth is under-seasoned." What it suggests is that early humans, probably not Homo sapiens yet, were using fire in a place where they lived. That is already enormous. If there was fire in a living space, cooking becomes possible, not proven in every case, but possible. Fire gives warmth, it gives light, it scares animals, it changes the social life of a group, and yes, it can change food. Some newer claims push possible fire use even earlier, maybe older than 1 million years, but these claims are debated, and even when burned bones are real, they do not always tell us exactly what the fire was used for. A burned bone can say, "Fire was here." It cannot always say, "This was lunch." That is the detective problem. Archaeologists need more than burned stuff. They need context. Where was it found? Was it in a hearth, meaning a place where fire was repeatedly made? Was it mixed with tools? Was it near animal bones that were cut open? Were the bones burned at temperatures that match cooking rather than a raging wildfire? Were stones heated in a pattern? Was there ash from plants? Each little clue is like one sentence from a missing book. And then we get to one of the most surprising pieces of evidence: fish teeth. At the site of Gesher Beno Yaakov, near the ancient shore of a lake in the Jordan Valley, researchers found evidence that hominins cooked fish around 780,000 years ago. Hominins means humans, and are close extinct relatives, so not necessarily modern humans, but members of the human family. The evidence came from tiny fish teeth, especially teeth from the throat area of large fish. Some fish have teeth deeper inside the mouth or throat to grind food. These little teeth can survive when the rest of the fish disappears. Scientists studied the structure of those teeth and found signs that they had been heated at relatively low cooking temperatures, not blasted in a huge fire. That is the key detail. Burned is not the same as cooked. If you drop a fish directly into a massive flame and turn it into charcoal, that tells one story. If the teeth show controlled heating, that suggests food was being cooked, not just accidentally burned. That tiny detail changes the whole story. It means that by about 780,000 years ago, some ancient humans or human relatives may have been cooking fish on purpose, not just using fire. Cooking food. And fish is interesting because it is not the first food many people imagine. We often picture ancient humans roasting meat from giant animals, something dramatic, something with tusks, but one of the strongest clues points to fish. Fish would have been valuable. It is rich in protein and fat. It can be easier to catch in certain places than large animals, and if you cook it, it becomes softer and safer to eat. Also, cooked fish smells amazing, which means ancient humans may have discovered one of the strongest forces in history: people walking toward food because it smells good. From there, the evidence ladder gets stronger as we move forward in time. Around 400,000 to 300,000 years ago, signs of regular fire use become much clearer in several places. In Europe and the Middle East, archaeologists find more hearths, more burned bones, more heated stones, and more evidence that fire had become part of daily life. At Kaise cave in Israel, there is evidence of a central hearth used again and again around 300,000 years ago. A hearth is basically a fireplace, a controlled place where people made and kept fire. This was not just a random burn patch. It suggests repeated use of the same spot. That matters because a hearth is not only technology, it is organization. People had to bring fuel. They had to choose where smoke would go. They had to keep children away from the flames, which means some ancient parent probably said the prehistoric version of, "Do not touch that," 6,000 times. They had to gather around it. They had to share space. By this point, cooking was likely not a rare accident. It was becoming a regular part of life for at least some groups. But the dates are still messy because different behaviors leave different traces. Using fire is older than making fire. Making fire is different from controlling fire. Controlling fire is different from cooking. Cooking now and then is different from depending on cooked food every day. That is why scientists are careful. The earliest secure evidence of fire use is around 1 million years old at Wonderwork Cave. The earliest strong direct evidence of cooking food is often linked to the 780,000-year-old fish evidence from Gesher Beno Yaakov. The clearest widespread signs of regular hearth use become stronger around 400,000 to 300,000 years ago. But the theory that cooking began even earlier, maybe with Homo erectus around 1.8 million years ago, remains possible. Homo erectus was a human ancestor with a body more like ours than earlier apes, longer legs, smaller teeth than some earlier forms, a bigger brain, a body built for moving across landscapes. Some scientists argue that these changes make more sense if Homo erectus was eating cooked food. But here is the honest problem. Biology can suggest cooking, but archaeology has to prove it. A smaller gut and bigger brain might fit a cooking theory, but they do not come with a label saying, "This person enjoyed roasted tubers." Fossils tell us about bodies. Fire traces tell us about behavior. Connecting the two is hard, so the story sits between hard evidence and smart guessing. And that is not weakness. That is good science. Good science does not pretend the past is clearer than it is. Now let's talk about what cooking meant for the people doing it. Because this was not just about calories. Ancient humans were not stupid animals who accidentally stumbled into civilization because someone dropped a fish into the fire. They were problem solvers. They lived in groups. They watched each other. They remembered what worked. They noticed patterns. If a roasted root made you feel full longer than a raw one, you remembered. If cooked meat made children chew more easily, you remembered. If a certain plant stopped being bitter after heating, you remembered. If someone ate it raw and had a terrible night, everyone remembered, probably more loudly than necessary. Cooking rewards memory. It also rewards patience. Raw food can be eaten immediately. Cooking makes you wait. That means you need self-control. You need trust. You need to believe that the food will be better later. In a harsh world, waiting is not always easy. Cooking also creates sharing problems. Imagine a group has meat. If everyone eats raw pieces immediately, the meal is over quickly. But if the group cooks it, now there is a waiting period. Who guards it? Who gets the first piece? Who controls the fire? Who decides when it is ready? Who gets blamed when it burns? This is where cooking becomes social. Food is never just food. Even today, a meal can mean family, status, love, duty, argument, memory, or passive-aggressive silence over undercooked rice. Around an ancient fire, food may have done the same basic thing. It pulled people together. A fire at night changes everything. Without fire, darkness belongs to predators. With fire, darkness becomes a room. People can see faces after sunset. They can repair tools. They can feed children. They can rest together. They can make sounds, gestures, stories, warnings, and plans. Cooking may have turned feeding time into social time. Here is the part most people miss. Cooking may not have started because humans were chasing flavor. It may have started because fire created a new kind of group life. A hearth is a center. It says, "Come here." It creates a safe circle. It makes a place feel like a place. Before walls, before villages, before houses, the fire may have been home. And once food was cooked there, the hearth became even more important. It was where raw things became edible. It was where cold bodies became warm. It was where dangerous night became bearable. That does not mean ancient humans were sitting around having deep philosophical discussions about identity and grilled fish. But they may have been doing something just as important, learning to be together for longer periods in one place. Cooking also may have affected relationships between adults and children. Human children are helpless for a long time. Compared with many animals, we are born needy, slow, and frankly ridiculous. A baby horse stands up quickly. A human baby spends months looking surprised by its own hands. Soft cooked food could help feed children and older people. It could make calories easier to share with someone who could not chew tough raw food well. That matters for survival. A group that can feed its young better has an advantage. A group that can keep older members alive longer may keep more knowledge. Because older people are libraries with knees. They remember where water is, which plants plants are safe, which season brings which animals, which cousin should not be trusted near the last piece of roasted meat. Cooking may have helped support that web of care. There is another unexpected angle. Cooking may have changed power. If food must be cooked, then whoever controls fire controls something valuable. The best place near the hearth matters. The person who knows how to keep embers alive matters. The person who knows which plants become safe after heating matters. Knowledge becomes status, not status like a crown or a throne, more like quiet practical authority. In a small group, the person who knows how to turn a bitter root into dinner is not just useful, they are important. Cooking may also have encouraged division of tasks. Some people gathered fuel, some butchered animals, some collected plants, some watched children, some guarded the fire, some carried embers from one camp to another. This is not the beginning of modern society, but it is a seed of it. A meal requires cooperation, and once cooperation is part of food, food becomes part of culture. Over time, cooking grows far beyond survival. At first, it may have been simple roasting. Put food near heat. Try not to burn it. Eat the good parts. Pretend the burned parts were intentional. Later, humans learned more methods. They cooked in ashes. They used hot stones. They made earth ovens by heating stones in pits and covering food. They dried and smoked meat to preserve it. They cracked bones and heated them to get fat and marrow. They roasted seeds and roots. Much later, pottery changed everything. Pots allowed boiling. Boiling is a huge deal because it lets people cook foods that would burn if placed directly on fire. It makes soups, stews, porridges, and soft meals for babies and elders. It also lets people extract nutrients from bones and plants more efficiently. But pottery comes very late compared with the first cooking. The earliest cooking was probably rough, smoky, and experimental. No pot, no pan, just fire, stone, ash, and courage. Eventually, cooking became one of the foundations of civilization. Agriculture brought grains and domesticated plants. Cooking turned grains into bread, porridge, noodles, and beer. Yes, beer becomes part of the story later, because humans looked at grain and thought, what if dinner could also make us bad at decisions? Cities needed stored food. Stored food needed processing. Processing needed fire, ovens, mills, pots, and people who knew what they were doing. Food became trade. Spices moved across continents. Recipes carried memory. Meals marked religion, class, family, and identity. People began to say, this is our food, which is another way of saying, this is who we are. And it all reaches back to the same ancient shift. Humans learned to transform nature before eating it. That is the strange thing about cooking. It sits between biology and culture. It changes calories, but it also changes meaning. It feeds the body, but it also builds a group. So when did humans start cooking? The honest answer is we do not know exactly. If we mean, when did human ancestors first use fire, the secure evidence goes back at least about 1 million years, with possible older claims still debated. If we mean, when do we have strong direct evidence of food being cooked, one of the best clues is the cooked fish from about 780,000 years ago. If we mean, when did fire and cooking become regular parts of life for many human groups, the evidence becomes much clearer around 400,000 to 300,000 years ago. And if we mean, when did cooking begin shaping the human body, some scientists think it may go back even earlier, possibly to Homo erectus around 1.8 million years ago. But that part is still a theory, not a settled fact. So the answer is not one date. It is a range, a slow transformation. First, fire was danger, then fire was opportunity, then fire was a tool, then fire became a place, then food entered the flames, and humans were never quite the same again. The first cook was probably not trying to invent cuisine. They were hungry. They were curious. Maybe they were desperate. Maybe they were copying what happened after a wildfire. Maybe they noticed a burned animal smelled better. Maybe someone made a mistake, and for once in human history, the mistake improved dinner. But that small discovery opened a door. Every time you boil water, toast bread, roast vegetables, fry an egg, or reheat leftovers while pretending it counts as cooking, you are taking part in a very old human habit. You are doing something your body understands deeply. You are using heat to make food safer, softer, richer, and more human. You are standing in a chain that runs back through kitchens, farms, villages, caves, lake shores, and smoky camps under ancient skies. Somewhere, long before written language, long before cities, long before anyone could explain digestion or germs or calories, a group of human ancestors gathered around a fire and waited for food to change. Think about that for a second. Cooking is ordinary because it is ancient. It is strange because it changed us. It is funny because the whole human story may partly depend on someone looking at raw food and thinking, maybe let's burn it a little first. And honestly, they were right.